Good afternoon, I'm Vashan Brown with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. The Electoral Office of Jamaica, EOJ, says there was a 56% turnout of special services voters yesterday for the September 3 general election. This was 7% less than in the 2016 general election when there was a 63% voter turnout. 26,276 police, military and election day workers cast ballots at 37 polling stations across the island. A total of 46,777 individuals were eligible to vote. A breakdown of the numbers shows that of the 11,512 police personnel registered to vote, only 4,849 exercised their franchise. 982 military personnel voted out of 4,181, while the majority of election day workers registered to vote did so, 20,445 out of 31,084. Now the envelopes with the special services votes will stay sealed and be counted with the general population on election day. There is a suggestion this afternoon that the authorities designate specific polling stations for voting by persons infected with COVID-19. Persons in isolation have been given a 1-hour window from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock Thursday afternoon in which to cast their ballots. However, Associate Professor at the School of Public Health at the University of Technology, Dr. Alveston Bailey, notes that it seems they will be allowed to vote at any polling station. He says the risk could be reduced.
That might pose a problem. So therefore, we still have some time for the policymakers to rethink this and designate some polling stations specifically for those who are coming from isolation. If not, persons will be exposed unnecessarily to a hazardous situation.
Director of Elections Glasspool Brown is suggesting that elderly voters stagger the time they cast ballots on election day. Mr. Brown says special arrangements have been made to accommodate them at polling stations.
To come a little bit later, not that in the morning rush, as what normally happened in the past. It should be a lighter process. I would say between 11 and 1 p.m., 2 p.m.
Will there be any special arrangements for those people?
Our instruction to this, our supervisors and all the location will have an EOJ supervisor. What we seek to do is to ask, we have instructed our supervisors to just usher the elders or the senior citizens as best as possible in the front of the line. And again, I just appeal to the other members of the public here in the line, and you see our supervisors trying to do that. They just be patient and to allow them, because the intention here is to get the senior citizens in and out of the polling station as quick as possible.
Director of Elections Glasspool Brown there speaking with Dion Jackson Miller. Member of Parliament for North West Manchester, Michael Phillips, says he's looking forward to a third term as MP, even as he's being criticised over his failure to deliver on promises from the 2016 general elections. The failed promise improved water to the constituents of Manchester North Western.
Tell the young man to pack his bag and go. You know that he hasn't been performing. You know that there are many areas of neglect. Where are the factories, the areas of employment? Where are the opportunities for young people? Where is the internet access and connectivity throughout the constituency? Where is the water supply?
But Mr. Phillips says the issue is bigger than the Member of Parliament and blamed the current Andrew Holness administration.
There's a project that was on the table, which is a Greater Mandeville Water Supply Project, which was taken off the table by this JLP administration, which is to redo the pipes from Porous to Mandeville and from Pepper to Mandeville. As it is now, there's a non-revenue aspect of the water coming to Mandeville from the both wells, from Porous and Pepper, where at least 80% of the water is being leaked before it reaches to Mandeville.
He is, however, hopeful that help will come for the people of Manchester in relation to improved water systems in the near future.
Tell it is something greater than what the Member of Parliament can manage. And we are hoping that the government can do something. And I hope that the next PMP government can do something about the water in Manchester. It is something that is decades old. And it is something that needs to be dealt with, I admit.
The JLP candidate says if elected to represent the people of the constituency, he'll be seeking a memorandum of understanding with Windalco in getting water to the people. This, Mr. Young says, will be done in his first year in office. Campaign co-chairman of the Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, Rudyard Spencer, has been hospitalized. Mr. Spencer represented the constituency of Clarendon Southeastern for 18 years. When contacted, General Secretary of the JLP, Dr. Horace Chang, told our news center that he could confirm the hospitalization of Mr. Spencer. He, however, said he did not know the cause. Now, Dr. Chang says the campaign co-chairman is, however, not critically ill and is currently undergoing tests at a Kingston-based hospital. And we now take a break on the midday news, but please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Continuing the news now. Opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips is blaming the latest surge of the coronavirus on the government's mismanagement of the pandemic. Jamaica recorded 102 new cases of COVID-19 yesterday, pushing the country's tally to 2,459. Dr. Phillips believes the government's failure to listen to the advice of health professionals over the emancipation holiday has resulted in a further surge of the virus.
The worst act of political irresponsibility ever seen in Jamaica has been the decision of Andrew Holness to reject the advice of the health professionals over the Emancipendence weekend. The consequence of his failure to tighten the curfew and the restrictions then has been to see this wave of further infections, which is paralyzing the country and sending so many people to hospital, which are unprepared.
On Sunday, Jamaica had a record 245 new cases of the respiratory illness. And Chairman of the Police Federation, Sergeant Petrero, says the surge in coronavirus cases has been affecting operations at some police stations. The Highgate police station in St. Mary has been closed to members of the public after a civilian worker tested positive for COVID-19. Police officers who came in contact with the worker have been placed in quarantine and are awaiting results of COVID-19 tests. Sergeant Rowe is worried about the police being exposed to the virus.
And we're encouraging our members to stay clear of situations where they believe that their health can be compromised. And when I say stay clear, it doesn't translate to a passive action or inactivity, but to ensure that safe distance is maintained, social distancing, where there are suspected cases of COVID-19, especially with the new protocols that came in force today regarding COVID-19 patients being allowed to vote. We encourage our members to allow the Ministry of Health to lead in response to interacting with such persons or the persons so trained to do.
As the peak of the hurricane season approaches, there may be a problem for residents in Westmoreland. That's because the Parish Disaster Preparedness Office says fewer shelters are available to persons who may be left stranded in the event of a natural disaster. Here's Herman Green.
Residents in Westmoreland are worried about more rains being in the forecast this week because several communities were flooded last week.
I was afraid because I see everywhere down there the water is flowing back.
It affects me bad.
As the hurricane season gets more active, the Parish Disaster Preparedness Office is also expressing concern. Parish Coordinator Hilma Tate told TVJ News that a recent assessment of parish shelters revealed that 30% of the listed shelters are no longer suitable to provide protection. The parish had up to 97 shelters.
But after inspection of the shelters by the agencies, we are down to 67 shelters, which can be used for this year, recognized with COVID-19.
She says some shelters have been declared unsuitable because of structural damage linked to a tremor in January this year. Others are no longer appropriate as, based on recent flooding trends, she says decorative blocks would now allow water in. But she says the issue is further compounded by the ongoing pandemic and the recent spike in cases. Some persons may have to seek refuge elsewhere.
As with COVID-19, it's not going to be possible for us to accommodate as many persons as we used to. And so that's why I'm encouraging persons to go to family members whose houses are more secure. We find also that there are some shelters, some of the schools in particular, the condition is not ideal for to be used as a shelter. So as a result of that.
While hoping that Jamaica does not face a hurricane this year and that residents will not need shelters, she warns that the ongoing rains and flooded areas are still dangerous.
We do not know how deep the water may be, so I invite persons not to venture into the water, but to keep safe, especially with children, keep them inside and keep the families safe.
News overseas now in the United States. Well, the U.S. has recorded 6 million confirmed cases of COVID-19. But despite that fact, health experts say there is some good news. Details from the CNN.
COVID cases continue to hit grim milestones. Just over 7 months ago, no one in the U.S. had a confirmed case. Now the U.S. has topped 6 million cases. That's according to Johns Hopkins University. The somber reality that comes with those numbers, more than 183,000 people in the U.S. have died. In Los Angeles Monday, a memorial honored the more than 5,700 people who have died in that county alone. But despite those high numbers, there is some good news.
So as a nation, we are clearly doing better now on the last day of August than we were on the first day of August. The cases have come down. Deaths are starting to decline. Hospitalizations are down. This is good news.
Colleges across the country are working to stay ahead of outbreaks as some students return to campus. A New York university canceled in-person classes for at least 2 weeks after an outbreak there. That outbreak is linked to a large party. School leaders say dozens of students have been suspended for violating the code of conduct.
We have already suspended dozens of our students for violating codes of conduct. We have to instill in people that it's not just your actions. Your actions have consequences on everyone else. It could impact our faculty and get them sick. It can impact the student body population. So we're going to keep reinforcing that message, saying we want to keep these colleges open.
3 vaccines are now in phase 3 trials in the United States. Even so, health officials say a vaccine probably won't be publicly available until at least early 2021.
In sports, West Indies women's interim head coach Andre Coley says it's an honor to have West Indies being part of history in restarting cricket for both men and women. Coley has been named interim head coach of the region's senior women's team for their upcoming Tour of England next month.
The West Indies men were part of the historic Tour of England, which marked the first time cricket was being played since the COVID-19 pandemic, and now the women will follow suit. A 5-match T20 Tour of England women starting on September 21 will mark the return of women's cricket, which has been postponed since the Women's T20 World Cup ended in March this year. The tournament marked the end of Gus Logatt's interim spell as coach of the Windies women, and as such, Jamaica Scorpions head coach Andre Coley has been called up for their next assignment.
My role with the team is basically an interim one. So I've been asked to lead the group over the next 5 weeks or so in the 5 T20s against England. My understanding is that a longer-term head coach will be selected soon. Indications are that whoever that person is will join us at some stage during the tour.
The successful hosting of the men's team for a 3-test tour in July and the subsequent hosting of Pakistan for a similar series in the game's longest format has given Coley the confidence in the current blueprint which is in place for these types of arrangements.
We are going to be in a similar bubble where we travel when we get there. We'll just be isolating by ourselves in an area. A hotel, the ground is there as well. Everything that we need will be there, so self-contained. We are fortunate to have Dr. Singh and Nkoyo, who were the team doctor and massage therapist for the men. So they have first-hand experience of what made that successful.
The Windies women have been enduring a poor run of form in recent times. They won only one of their 3 matches played in the T20 World Cup this year and failed to leave the group stages, And in their previous series against India, they lost 2-1 in the ODIs and were swept 5-0 in T20s.
I'm sure there's a lot to be said about the fact that, I've been winning a lot of games recently and so on, but the mindset is one, leaving the shores that, we are going there to win games and to win the series. Obviously, we'll have to work out how we will do that with the resources that we have and based on the readiness of the players.
The contingent left the region on Sunday and will live in a bubble before playing all their matches between September 21 and 30 at the Ancora County Ground in Derby.
And chasing 185 for victory, the Jamaica Tallowers were at 105 for 6 after 16 overs against the Trinbago Knight Riders in their Caribbean Premier League match at the Brian Lara Academy in Trinidad. Glenn Phillips has so far top scored with 41, while Nkrumah Bonner also made 26. Earlier, the Knight Riders blasted their way to a challenging 184 for 4 after being sent to bat. Colin Monroe top scored with 65, while Captain Kieran Pollard made 33 not out, Sunil Narayan 29 and Lyndall Simmons 25. Carlos Brathwaite took 2 for 36, while there was a wicket for Fidel Edwards. Now, the Tallowers are hoping to boost their semi-final chances. Knight Riders, who led the standings, boast a perfect win record from their 6 matches so far. And that's the Midday News. I'm Vashon Brown. Join us at 7 for Primetime News Package. On behalf of the News, Sports and Production teams, have a good afternoon.